Hey friends, welcome to Season 8 of the Let's Get Real podcast. I'm Justin.
And I'm Trisha.
Every week, we have honest conversations about life, love, and leadership without the pressure to pretend.
Whether you're in a great season or a messy one, this space is for grace and truth and real connection.
And this season, we're diving into some powerful conversations with each other, with friends, and with leaders who are making a difference by leading from a place of authenticity.
So whether you're listening in the car, out on a walk, maybe just hiding in your pantry for a little peace and quiet, this podcast is for you.
Let's dive into Season 7 and get real.
Welcome to the Let's Get Real podcast. I am super excited about our guest today. Jenni Clayville is a longtime friend. She is full of life. She's a spitfire. She's brilliant
And borderline inappropriate.
Yeah. She's incredible. She was born and raised in Seattle, Washington, so she's a West Coaster, but she actually lives on the East Coast and has for some time now. She has been in pastoral ministry since, I think, 2001, and she currently serves as the executive pastor and, I believe, teaching pastor at Nova Church in
Northern Virginia.
So she has been married to Brian for, I think, over 2 decades now. They have 2 kiddos that in my mind are still like littles, but they're not. They're like grown boys. It's trippy to me. But she is just a wellspring of knowledge about just real life situations and how God meets us in those real life situations. So I'm so excited about this conversation.
So welcome, Jenni, to the podcast.
Well, we're just going to dive right in, guys, because the 3 of us have already been laughing, talking about old school, not inappropriate, but some crazy things
Borderline.
that we've done.
Borderline, for sure.
Yeah, borderline.
And spent a lot of time making fun of me.
Yes, that is
Yes.
why we hang out. But I did say, Jenni, in the intro, you are like one of my favorite humans on the planet. And there's not many people wired like you. You have like this ability to go really deep and then be extremely silly. And I was learning, I'm, in grad school getting my marriage and family therapy degree, and there's this whole thing about humor. And I didn't realize like really how therapeutic humor is. Have you always been like the one to kind of pop off something like ridiculous, funny, that like breaks the ice? Have you always been that way, or is that like kind of something you grew into in adulthood?
I think I grew into it for sure. I was very insecure. Honestly, I probably still am. I think I'm just older, and I think perimenopause makes you care maybe a little bit less.
That's exactly what I would say too.
Okay, I just want to say to the listener, you all know how loud I am laughing. I am going to step away from the mic a little bit. There's going to be a lot of loud Trisha today because of Jenni.
Yeah.
I just want to prepare you.
It's a hobby of mine to make Trisha laugh. It's not very difficult for me. But the truth is, I don't think I was funny when I was younger. There was a lot of trauma. You guys know my story. Just growing up, had an abusive mom, and didn't know who I was, and was really uncomfortable in my skin. And I think as I got older, it was easier for me to, I learned how to be funny accidentally, and it ended up being a good thing. But learning to be funny, kind of getting ahead of the joke that was going to land on me. And I think that's where it stemmed from. And at the beginning, it wasn't like great, because I think I leaned too much towards sarcasm, and maybe my humor was actually not that kind. And so I had to grow into it. I'd figure out all that stuff. But I got funnier, like the good funnier, with healing, with counseling, with therapy, because laughter is so good, but I think it could be used for evil too, when it's not, for a situation that is for everybody, but you're like trying to make fun of, like if it's all aimed at one person in a negative way to make them feel small, that's when it's not great. But to answer your question, the shorter version of it is, no, it's something I had to grow into.
Well, I'm grateful that you're not going to use your humor as a weapon against me during this podcast.
I didn't promise that.
But we do have a story that we always kind of have. It's just, It's almost like when we're together.
It makes me sound like a stalker, which I'm not. So I don't like this. I don't like the story, but I'm gonna.
I wish Brian, your husband, was here because it would make it even funnier. But let's just for those who may be new to the 2 of yours relationship, Jenni, share just a little bit how you met Justin for the first time.
Yeah. So it was 18 years ago. I think
Nuts.
Twitter, I know. You know how I know? Because Paxton's going to be 18.
I know. He's still kind of 5. Don't tell him that in my mind. But
I know.
So
He's
18 years ago, was that what that would be like 2004? What is that? 2000?
2008. Maybe, no, 2009. It was 2009 because it was, okay, so here it is. I went to Exponential. I was part of a church plant back then. That was so long ago. And that was like 3 churches ago. Anyway, church plant, first time in Exponential. And then you guys showed up at Exponential, which was weird because in hindsight, you guys weren't actually leading a church. You weren't even a part of a church. You just showed up at the time.
Yeah.
And Exponential wasn't as big as it is now, but it was big. Like I think I want to say there was maybe 600-ish people there. So it's not like unless you're looking for somebody, you're not going to necessarily find them. And so I don't know the numbers. I'm just making it up. We should ask Dave Ferguson. Anyway, I'm just making up numbers, but I remember we all fit in and there was space inside the main church area at that church.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there, and Paxton was maybe just 4 months old, and I was nursing him, and people were coming in, and I had that little cape over, me. And so I was nursing him, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, Justin comes up to me. He's like, "Hi, you're Jay Clayville." And I'm like, hello. And I'm like, what? I just
want to time out here. I was not with Justin. So he tells me the story after the fact, and I'm like, wait, you did what?
I don't know. It was like when blogging. We had just started blogging, and
Twitter was
Twitter was brand new, and somehow we had connected through Tam Hodge, you. Yeah. The whole blogging world at that time. We were actually at Exponential trying to figure out were we going to go on staff at Crosspoint or were we going to start a church. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of a searching time for us as well.
It's crazy because I don't think back then it wasn't first of all, I'm not a huge deal, but even back then I wasn't. So I was in my head thinking, how do I know you? Did we meet? I was thinking in my own mind, oh my gosh, I forgot him. This is the worst. And then you're like, no, I follow you on Twitter. I read your blog. And I'm like, you do? Wow, thanks. And I'm like this, covering my hi, how are you? It's so crazy. But then we got, actually, I don't remember what we're talking about, but it was a very comfortable conversation. And you're like, you have to meet my wife, Trisha. We got to hang out. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And so later on that night, or we traded numbers or something like that, and we connected, and we're like, oh, let's go grab dinner. So we actually ended up we went to PF Chang's. I will not forget.
We did.
I don't know that was awkward. And then part 2 is we sit down, and I don't know if you were Holy Spirit inspired, or you were just kind of we were just deep in our feels trying to figure out 2009.
Well, I think I think somebody Matt or you the pastor you were working with at the time, or you were like, so what are you guys doing here? And I'm like, well, I had an affair in 2005.
Justin launches in, and I was like, now I just want to remind the listener, this is 2009. We had shared our story maybe twice and had this little teeny tiny blog. So I was still kind of uncomfortable, not uncomfortable
sensitive.
Don't share a story. This was how's this going down? And I was pretty positive you probably shouldn't start with the story before the appetizer. So that was
we hadn't even had the lettuce wraps yet.
But
we did order though. We did order.
It became this beautiful unfolding that I would love to share. But what I really would love to spend our time, Jenni, is we've been friends now for 18 years. It's crazy. Yeah. That was a catalyst that changed your life, your marriage, the trajectory of your family. Yeah. And I would love for you to share that and maybe kind of dive into, over the past 18 years, how has God continued to redeem? How have you continued to walk in the identity of being loved and cherished by God?
Yeah. It's crazy because whenever Trish, you and I tell the story, we used to speak together and all that stuff. We did circuits, but you would tell the story you're mortified that he's talking about any of this. But what's crazy is at that time I had already ended a an affair that I had chosen to be a part of, and I was in the process of making it up to my husband for the rest of my life, because I never actually had this affair to like leave my husband. I was like so all over the place. I didn't know myself. Trauma does things to you, and I'm not making excuses, because I also went into the affair fully knowing what I was doing. Some people say like, I don't know how I got there. I totally know how I got there, so I'm not playing dumb. But I remember like waffling back and forth in my conversation with the Lord of like, do I tell him? Like, Brian doesn't even know. Like, he says he loves me, but would he if he knew? And I remember having this conversation with God. And so, for you, Trish, when Justin starts talking about this, I am like captivated, because the thing that stopped me from ever saying anything to Brian was that I'd never seen a marriage. I myself came from a family that was divorced. I've never seen a family thrive after an affair. And the fact that you were still together, and you were very honest, like, we're going to be together, but we're still working through it. That's how early on it was. Like now in hindsight, we're like, oh my gosh, so many things. Like, there's so many other things that come up, right? But I remember Justin talking, and I felt this incredible hope. Like, clearly God was in PF Chang's with the lettuce wraps, because like, Trish, I remember your face, like, the color drained from your face, because like, even you've told the story, you're like, oh my gosh, I actually like her, like, I want to be friends with her. What are you doing? They're gonna run for the hills.
I just got a friend today. Like, just give me 24 hours.
Yeah, and it's funny now, but in that time I was like, it was so clear that God was like, you've asked for this, and I'm telling you, be obedient and just do it, and I got it, right? And so that evening you told me your story, and I just like absorbed it, and I just prayed. I said, God, I trust you with this. And so that night we went back to our hotel, and I, put Paxton to sleep in his little hotel crib. And then Brian had the TV on, and I just said, honey, I really need to talk to you. And he just turned off the TV. He's like, what's up? And I just confessed just about everything. But I just told him, hey, I had an affair. I'm not in it anymore, but I chose it, and I've been hiding it from you for over a year and a half. And he heard your whole story too. So I don't think he was completely blindsided. But he did, like, we weren't okay, And so it was like this moment of, I think God just in hindsight prepared this way for us to kind of know what the next step was with people that had gone before us. Even though you weren't like old friends, you were very, very new friends, but like immediately, I think we can both say like we were life friends immediately, even before the story was shared, right? And so it was kind of this, in hindsight, clearly a very, very beautiful God ordained thing. And I'm so forever grateful for the two of you. And so that really just kind of set us off into where we are now. And it wasn't easy. You guys walked with us. Brian didn't forgive me right away. We had a group of friends around us that really, just covered us in prayer and checked in on him. And I think a lot of times people, especially in the church, even now, they don't know what to do with adultery. They don't know what to do with divorce. They don't know what to do with things that are hard, suicide, depression. And I think that's the fear in church, right? You have this faith, but there were these people that, and it wasn't a lot. I think the majority was like, I don't know what to do with this, and like kind of took off. But there was a solid handful, more than I thought, that kind of just enveloped us, prayed for us, checked in on us, and we weren't alone as we shouldn't be. God didn't create us to be alone. He created us to be in community. And it was one of the most beautiful times. And so if it wasn't for whatever caused you to start being so weird, Justin, and just telling yourself,
it comes naturally.
If it wasn't for that, it wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Well, I know that we're laughing about something that is very, very heavy and very, very serious. And
for sure.
It's not to make light of it. It's hopefully, as a listener, you're hearing the deep work that has taken place to get all four of us to this point, to be able to look back on something that seemed really unusual 18 years ago, but was really the providence of the Holy Spirit. We were meeting with this church staff last night, kind of talking through how to have healthy marriages and as church staff and spouses. And I shared this story of a conversation I had before the affair started in 2005 that I felt like the Holy Spirit prompted me to be honest, and I chose not to be. Mm-hmm. And so what I hope as a listener you take away is, Jenni, you could have had that encounter, not with me or Trish, but with God at that table, and chose to stay silent.
Right.
But you chose to be obedient in that moment, and that was very courageous. And then Brian chose to be obedient and to stay and to forgive and to do the hard work of love. And so, I think it's just a real testimony that a lot of times when we do pray for things, God does answer our prayer, and we're either not happy with the answer or we choose not to obey it. And so it's just this real seeing the fruit of your ministry now and your family. It's just this amazing thing and a testimony to not just to God's grace, but then to his transformative power as we lean into, to him.
Yeah. And I do like, Jenni, that you mentioned, that is your story, but betrayal trauma, listening to the Holy Spirit, being willing to be authentic and honest, that goes beyond just a marriage relationship. And so someone who's listening that maybe for, kind of their own story of just feeling closed off and really does not want to be fully known, what would be, some encouragement that you've seen in your own life, and then the people that you've pastored over the past 20 years of helping them kind of step into that as well, because it's kind of terrifying to think about.
Yeah, there's two things that come to mind. The first is, I want to clarify, I heard from God before you told the story to me, Justin, and I don't know if I disobeyed or if I didn't know how to obey. And so it wasn't the first time I had heard somewhere like, you have to confess. And I think I talked myself out of it. So that first thing is, I would say with anybody is listening or watching right now, like if you've heard it and you haven't done that, you're not like done. Like we always get the next right choice and the next right choice. Our God is such a gracious and forgiving and patient God. I do. Most of the time I would say, hey, obey first, like do it immediately. But in this case, I don't know if it would have ended up being as beautiful. Who am I to say, right? I feel like I had two very good friends that walked with me and Brian through this that I wouldn't have had if I had obeyed sooner. So this is not your like carte blanche to do whatever you want and not deal with it. But also God's timing is so much more perfect than ours. So that's the first thing I would say. Second, to answer your question is I think people are so afraid of the worst case scenario, because the worst case scenario in my head was, if I'm honest, was my husband was going to leave me, my children were going to desert me, I would have no friends, and I would die without Jesus. Like, first of all, let's just talk about the four things there. Like, okay, even if Brian left me, my children were too young to desert me, and there's no way in reality, sure, some people would leave, but life isn't over there, and then I would die. Like, okay, so if I would die without Jesus, like, I just don't think that's true. Like God, did he die for all sins or just the ones that you've asked for forgiveness for, right? So there's theology in that too. So the worst case scenario would never have even become true. And what I realized and I told you earlier, like I confessed most of it. And in hindsight, I wish I confessed all of it. Because I was trying to protect Brian and not hurt him. I already seeing how much I hurt him, and I thought holding back was going to help, but really it made it look like I was lying even more, even that wasn't my intention, right? And so if I could do it again, I would have just been honest the first time out and not, because it's like ripping it apart every time, right? And so I would say that for me, even with some of the struggle in that next year for us, everything, the truth coming out to light was a million times better. Not easy, not without consequence, but a million times better and God glorifying than when I had kept it locked up inside. There, things cannot thrive in the dark. And it's always like the enemy can really cause you to think there are things there in the dark. But when when light is exposed to the darkness, like darkness cannot, it doesn't exist. So as scary as it is, I think that's the enemy telling you, like, don't do it because you'll lose everything. And I don't think that's actually true. As someone who's experienced it multiple times, not affairs, just like different things that I've, brought to the light. Every single time, it's way better than I thought it would be. People are way more gracious than I thought they would be. And I feel less alone. And then you can actually step into the calling that God created you to live, in this world.
I know that all of us each of our families have dedicated their life to the church, right? So this isn't to begrudge the church or come down on the church, but there is almost like it's symptomatic of the American church to hide things, to share part of the truth, to not be fully known. What about our culture? What about American Christianity do you feel like facilitates this belief system that I can't be honest? I mean, if you look at Scripture, it's just a bunch of messed up people that are leading us and discipling us by basically what they all do wrong, right? Like, I mean, Jesus' closest friends failed him miserably, and yet we don't think that we can confess certain sins to our friends or certain sins to our spouse. What about the culture that we've created, in your estimation? I mean, obviously, you don't, need to have a perfect answer, but as you are pastoring people and you're around a lot of transient people in Northwest Virginia, right? They're in the military. They're very successful, but yet I think there's probably this culture in all of our churches where it's like, I don't think I can be completely honest. Where do you think that comes from?
I think a lot of things. I don't think it's just our Western culture either. I think every culture has a bit of saving face. In fact, I would say Eastern culture maybe even more so. But I think Western specifically is we were raised with fairy tale stories. So once upon a time is like back then, and happily ever after is where we leave off, and there's like nothing wrong, right? So if our happily ever after doesn't look like Cinderella and Prince Charming, then we think we have failed. If for me, I have a mixture of Eastern and Western culture. I was raised Chinese, American. My first language was Chinese, Cantonese. And so my parents were immigrants. And so like, you work hard, you study hard to get where you are, and losing face is not just losing face for you, but it's your whole family. Like the whole line of ancestors are now like, this is what it looks like. And so that's a lot to carry for someone. And so the church, of course, you're going to bring your culture into the church. And so it comes down to shame and acceptance, right? The thing that God has created us to do is to love God and love others. And so because we're to love others as we love ourselves, we want naturally to be easy to love. We want people to love us. That's innately created in us. And so I think the enemy has just shifted it in all of us to think, if there's anything I could do to make myself not lovable, this is it. Don't share it. Don't share it because you will not be accepted. And can you imagine being not accepted in the one place that you're supposed to be accepted more than anywhere else, in the church, right? That's devastating. And I'm sure there's listeners and people that are watching now that you feel like that happened in your church. And if that happened, as a leader in the church, I'm so sorry. Like we are, yes, we're humans, but I think we have failed people in a lot of ways because we do not know how to love outside of ourselves. And we're trying to get better. All of us. I mean, the three of us sitting here, we're trying, but we will still fall short every day, And so, give us grace. But I do think it is we walk in fully ourselves, which is beautiful, but we also walk in fully ourselves with a whole lot of narrative that is not true, that has been twisted by the enemy to make us not be fully the good and the bad of, or negative, I guess it should be bad, but just like what we view as negative into the community. So we have to get past that, and we have to kind of get to a place where we're okay. I'm not saying we're like, oh yeah, I'm a sinner, I'm so fine, but like get to a place where like, okay, yeah, that is it, and I'm working on it, and I am still beloved by God, because they're not one or the other. It's both and always.
Yeah.
I think, Trish and I, we were at this event last night, and one of the pastor immediately said after we got done, he's like, man, thank you for being so brutally honest. And I think it's just kind of how we are. It's something that we have chosen to do. Like right now, our youngest son, or our youngest biological son, Isaiah, started dating a girl recently, and his litmus test is, can she handle our family group chat? Like that's how brutally honest we are. Can she handle the family group chat?
And not brutally honest, like
in a demeaning way. Yeah.
No, but more like
authentic.
This is what's going on in my life, and I think you learn that is a learning curve. Like
totally,
you don't go into it at a 400 level. It takes time, and you have to show grace that when you don't handle things well, like. I think I'm stuck on like two things that you said. And first is like kind of the fairy tale thing is like, geez, yes. And I was thinking, I was working on a message this week for Mother's Day on grace. And I was kind of reading through, the story that most people who have, been around church of, like Adam and Eve. And when they sinned, they cover themselves up with fig leaves. Yeah. And it was like, oh, that was the first version of fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
It's like we have language for that. But then what gets lost, to your point, Jenni, and I think people want to be authentic, but it's like, where do you start? And it feels like it always has to start from a place of devastation and pain.
Right.
And that's like, we tell people all the time, especially like younger generations, you do not have to fail morally to find this type of authenticity, but you do have to be willing to be authentic in your honesty. And so it's like, even like, I think the beauty of kind of what you said, and I've learned over the past 20 years, is even if you've done something out of God's will, it doesn't mean you understand it.
Right.
So the gift of counseling, the gift of community to like walk alongside you, we need that in our lives, but it's like counterintuitive to like expose and then be in community. But when it operates, it's like this deep knowing of, like you said, the biggest fear is like, I'm going to die. I'm going to lose everything. And then you're like, I didn't.
Right.
So how has that played out for, the boys as, they've kind of gotten this second half of marriage between you and Brian and ministry in a world that feels like it's gone really backwards, especially over the past, decade, and not just in politics, but in, race relations, in technology. It's the first time like our generation can't go to the other generation to say, what did you do when your kids got a smartphone?
Right. We're figuring it out in real.
Yeah, figuring it out on the fly. How has that changed, like how you have brought that authenticity? Like, how do you live it out as a family? How has that changed the boys?
Yeah, I don't know how it changed them, because Chance was 3 and Paxton was like, not even 1 yet. And so that first year was kind of like, there still is like, sometimes if I think about it too hard, I'm like, oh man, what did we do to our kids? Because we were kind of like rendered useless for 6 months to a year, right? Just trying to figure out our marriage. But what's interesting is, and I know you understand this, and I don't think it takes a huge crisis to get here, but if you choose the right thing in crisis, I think it can bring you to a place of, like you said, authenticity. It just is a different posture of how you live life. So once you've hidden something so great and so big, and then you start sharing it, and like the worst thing is out there, and like, did you die? No, I didn't die, right? And so like, I have this, Brian and I have this like, we almost lost our marriage. Like we almost lost a lot of things, and we didn't. And oh my gosh, how good is God. And so when we were raising our kids, you know, and your boys were older when you were going through all these stuff, but my boys were so young, you know, and so it's crazy. I don't think there was a change. I think that they were just raised knowing this is why we value and honor authenticity, honesty, the truth at all cost. And I think also it changed how Brian and I parented. We were raised like to not be honest or get caught. It was to get caught in a lie was where the punishment was. Well, there wasn't a punishment necessarily when that happened with the kids. There was just a conversation. There were consequences, but there was just a redirecting, right? And so we kind of raised them in this situation more in grace and conversation and understanding. And both kids, I'm not saying that they've never lied, because they definitely had like seasons where they did. But I'm really surprised at how much they talk to us. Like they want to hang around us. I remember growing up not wanting to hang out at home. I was like, get me this driver license and get me out of here, right? But my kids are like, let's hang out. What are you doing? Like Chance came back from college he's done with school now. He's actually coming home in the next 2 weeks. But over spring break, I had gotten into bed early, and then Chance like took a shower, and then he laid down in the bed with me, and then Paxton came in and laid down in the bed. These are like grown men. They're all taller than me. And then Brian comes in and he's like, what's happening in here? You know, but he crawls into bed, and there's like all four of us in a king size bed, which I feel like is a big bed, but it doesn't feel big when there's four large humans in it. And so, you know, but they're just like talking about school, talking about life, and Chance talking about his girlfriend, like all these different things where I'm like, this is it. This is so beautiful. This is what I would have never known that I could have 18 years ago. I thought I was going to lose all of this. And it just, I can't help but think if it is better because we chose obedience, you know?
That was the one thing when we met Zeke for the first time. I had to leave like an hour after I met him and fly to a speaking engagement. And so I didn't get to hang and kind of debrief with Trish. And she called me when I was on my way to the airport. And she's like, so what'd you think? What'd you think? And I got emotional because I just thought, I'm so grateful that we were there to experience it together. Like we didn't have to alternate times to see him.
Yeah.
There's somebody listening that they may have turned us off already, because it's like, good for you. Good for you, Jenni. Good for you, Justin and Trish. That's great. But that's not my story. And I'm pretty disappointed in God. Like I was authentic and
honest.
I was honest, and my marriage blew up, or they didn't find repentance. I did raise my kids to love me and crawl in bed with me, and now I didn't see it coming. The relationship is so broken. And you just said something so profound that I've never thought about before. But it's like, that is such a devastation, because we didn't get the freaking prince and the princess. We didn't get the castle. So it must be over. But it's like, gosh, no, Adam and Eve didn't get it either. But yet they still got God. And so what would be an encouragement you would give to the person who is like, yeah, just kind of feels let down, maybe bitter, angry that they didn't get the white knight, or they didn't get the
happily ever after.
No, I think of Job. You know what I mean? Like I think of it is hard to swallow when you have two stories on the screen here that look like it's like a perfectly wrapped story, and you and I both know that we lost things. Like what I'm telling you is, I lost a marriage that existed before this. This is actually a new marriage. This is a different marriage, and we had blood, sweat, and tears put into this so that it could be a marriage that wasn't just a good marriage, but a thriving, healthy marriage. And there's still days that they're crazy. For instance, it's been 18 years and it was full circle just a couple of months ago. The first time I ever went back to Exponential was this year. 18 years later. And I called Brian and I'm like, I walked into that church and didn't sit in the same pew that I sat in when you came to talk to me and I was nursing. But it's like, this is where it all began, right? And Brian wasn't there with me the second time I was with my church because we all just launched out our own, a new church, our own autonomous church. But I was like, oh my gosh, it was a whole different life. And so just because you're hearing this part of the story doesn't mean that it didn't cost us other things. It cost me family members. There are people that still aren't okay with my decision or my decision to tell this part of my story, the losing face thing. There are people that will forever, and I don't hold it against them, that feel like I have totally let them down. They trusted me, and you either have integrity or you don't. It's not a sliding scale, right? And so I lost all this integrity, rightfully so, with them. And those are relationships I loved so much, and I don't have those anymore. In your case, not yours, but like the listener's case, in every relationship, there's not just two people, there's like a whole family backing. So if your marriage didn't make it, you cannot control your spouse or your ex-spouse. You can't make that decision for them. We actually are, in our friend group, we have people that in that same time that we went through what we did and their marriages didn't make it, you know? And in our story, ours did, but it also isn't the same marriage before. And kind of thank God, right? But also just know that if we actually had time to sit down, it's not like it was super easy. It's not that there wasn't loss. There's still things that we had to mourn. One really quick example is we lost the first 3 years of Chance's existence, because how do you, my affair was like a little less than 2 years, but that's the majority of his childhood, like at that time. So we had really beautiful memories as a family, but are they real memories? Because there was this third silent partner in there, you know? And so that might sound like nothing, but it was, all of those things are things that we had to mourn. And those are still pictures. We didn't throw away those pictures, but you know that timing of that picture, you know, and there's things that you still have to work through in there. So I guess what I'm saying is people will fail you always, but God won't. And I think we need to be careful to not project our understanding and our experience from humanity, who is made in the image of Christ, onto Christ himself. So that is probably the biggest thing. And I am still guilty of doing it often. And we just have to remember that God's time, God's purpose, none of that is for us to know. And we are just trusting and believing that he knows way more than us. And that's a choice on our end.
So good. All right. So I want to switch gears a little bit, get you out of here on this one. You have a story when you came to Nashville, stayed with us. You and Trish were speaking at Leading the Love Unit conference in Nashville. You guys were both on the leadership team at that time. We made the mistake, according to Micah, of inviting you to go and drop him off at school with us. So you're both in the back seat of our van. I'm driving, Trish is in the passenger seat, and you're in the back with Micah, and you take the story from there.
It was actually Micah.
He's in eighth grade at this time. He's 29 now. He was in eighth grade then.
It was Micah and Elijah. They both got out of the car.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So Elijah was in
very different responses.
Elijah was in sixth grade. Micah was in eighth grade.
Elijah was living his best life. Let's just be honest.
That is 100% true.
So the minivan door opens. I'm like, first of all, I love your kids so much. You know, Micah calls me Aunt Jenny, and I love it so much. And still to this day, they get out of the car, and it's like the, drop off, line. And I yell out the door, and I'm like, make good choices. That's all I said. But it was so loud. And I was just like, I love you so much, baby Micah. Just yelling random stuff. You be good today, Elijah. Just crazy. Micah was laughing, but you could tell he was dying inside.
He went into a puddle in that moment, and Elijah
And Elijah's like, I know this. Yeah, she's crazy. Yeah.
It's so funny.
It's so funny. To this day, I think Micah still talks about it. I haven't heard Elijah talk about it, but they came home from school that day, and Elijah's like, that was the best. And Micah's like, I can't believe you did that.
Well, Micah asked you to endorse his book.
All of them so far.
Yeah.
All of them. I've endorsed all of them. So we're
he
still
was over
friends.
here. but he was over here, and I was talking to him about the book, and I don't know how your name came up, and he went back. Do you remember when I was in 8th grade and she completely embarrassed me in front of all my friends that day? I'm like, oh my gosh, you're living rent free in his mind.
I love it. You know what? I think it was because of that trauma that he's become such an incredible human being today. Because trauma is what kind of builds us, right? So you're welcome, Micah. You're welcome.
I wish we had more time because I think that's Jenni part 2 of talking about trauma. But I do want to leave just a reminder to the listener, when you hear our story, I was the betrayed and you were the betrayer. And you would think that we would be oil and water.
Right.
But God has used you to bring such healing to my heart to be able to understand parts of that aspect that I didn't understand. And I just share that as we close to the person listening, the three of us, we got some crazy stories. We haven't even scratched the surface of life stuff. But to your point, not only is God faithful, even after my 50 years of following God, or am I 51?
You're 50. No, you're 50.
Yeah.
Trish, don't worry about your age. You're great. You're a delight.
You're 51.
This is so Trish. How old am I? What day is it?
I was trying to think.
You were going to such a deep place until you forgot how old you were.
But seriously, at the end of the day, this is kind of like a catchphrase we can hear, but it means everything to us. God, truly, we can never outthink God's possibilities of redemption.
So good.
How kind of God to bring you back to Exponential 18 years later.
I know.
And really just soak in the goodness of God. And so to you, the listener, or if you're watching this, our prayer is that you will look for those moments in your life too. They're not special to the three of us. They are special to mankind, that God loves you. He's fighting for you, and he's cheering wildly for you. And so are we. So thanks so much, Jenni, for joining us. I'm sad that it's over, but we love you, and we look forward to seasons that you embarrass our grandbaby. So let's hope for that.
Amen.
I can't wait. I'm counting on it. Love you guys.
Thanks so much for joining us for another honest conversation. We hope that something in today's episode encouraged you, maybe even challenged you.
Our heart is to help you live with more connection, more purpose, and really more authenticity in every aspect of your life.
If this episode meant something to you, would you do us a favor? Would you leave a review wherever you listen to the podcast? It helps more people find these conversations.
Or better yet, share with a friend. Shoot somebody a text message today. Let them know what you're listening to, because you never know how God might use that to encourage somebody else.
We'll see you next time right here on the Let's Get Real podcast.